Welcome to Nova East Odyssey of the Mind, Region 11, Beginning Coaches Training. This training is really designed for people who haven't tackled coaching before for Odyssey. But if you've come as a review or we're watching this just as a review, hopefully it will be that for you. Remember that on our website, there are also emails in case you have follow-up questions. We're always glad to answer those because we want people headed in the right direction for Odyssey this year, especially since we know it's a whole new environment. So we will be having these trainings every Sunday. Typically, they're going to be starting at 1 o'clock. We do have our primary coaching today, though, starting at 2. And then next Sunday, we have one about the virtual Odyssey. It's kind of what's new this year. So that's for new and experienced coaches. We have one on spontaneous problem solving on the 6th. So we are skipping that weekend of Thanksgiving. Encouraging creativity on December 13th, style on the 20th, Theater 101 on the 10th, and building and construction on the 17th. We may add some other trainings as well, just to give people a chance to learn some new things about coaching Odyssey. So today's objective is, by the end, I hope you can answer these questions. Where are we participating in Odyssey of the Mind? Who is part of Odyssey of the Mind? What is Odyssey of the Mind? Why is Odyssey of the Mind beneficial? And how do I coach an Odyssey of the Mind team? So all of those questions, we're going to try to fly through the first 4 so we can get to the 5th one. All right, where are we? We are in Nova East. Northern Virginia has actually a few regions, but we're Nova East and we're Region 11. That actually includes Alexandria City Schools, Arlington Public Schools, Falls Church City Schools, and a tiny little section of Fairfax County, which we keep as part of our region, mainly because our in-person meets are held at West Potomac High School. So that's that little corner that we get access to. The site that you're seeing in front of you, novaeastodysseyofthemind.wordpress.com, is our website that we use to post items for our region specifically. We also link to the Odyssey of the Mind website at certain points just to show you what's happening there. But you should be able to go to our website for most things and also things pertaining just to us. Where is the tournament? This year, our tournament will be virtual. And since it's a virtual state tournament, we won't be having a regional one. And the reason is because of COVID-19 and because there are less teams competing, we just decided we'd pool all of our resources and do a great state tournament. And that way we'd also have access to a lot of experienced judges throughout the state. They will be judging the team videos and paperwork online, and you will be required to submit a video and paperwork to be reviewed and scored by those judges. So where will my team be meeting? Well, not at school, because most schools are closed. Unless you're lucky enough to have a school that is open and willing to let you meet there, you probably won't have access to meeting at school this year. You could certainly ask your principal, but I know at least in my account, the principal said no. Most teams will be either meeting video chat or in person outside, because really those are the only safe places at this point to be meeting. If you're meeting on video chat, you could use Zoom. A lot of people are familiar with that, and it's 40 minutes of free. You could always also jump off at the end of 40 minutes and jump back on, so that's an option. Discord is an app that our region is investigating because Odyssey of the Mind International has encouraged us to use that app because it is free. So we're trying to get accustomed to that. It's much more kind of gamey and like it's just like a different setting than Zoom. Zoom seems a little bit more formal, but it is a way to meet for free on video chat. In person, you could meet outside at a park, a vacant lot, a field, but just remember to keep things safe. Right now, masked and socially distant are the name of the game. And you want to make sure that everybody in your team is feeling safe and trusts people. So when you do your first meeting, there are some people who are uncomfortable, make sure that everybody's voice is heard. Like, what are they comfortable with? Kids being 3 feet apart, kids being 6 feet apart if it's outside, kids masking, not masking if it's outside. Just make sure you're being as safe as you can, because even when you're wearing Even when you're outside, it's not 100% safe if you're close and up on top of each other, which kids often are, like tumbling like bears and stuff. So just be aware of that and make sure that everybody trusts you and feels safe. Because the option is that team members could actually participate virtually, give them assignments, or you could do some of your meetings on video chat and some outside. There might be some people who are comfortable doing it inside, but if they do, remember that distance, keeping the time shorter, and masking inside. Who are we? Okay, we are all volunteers. We have a regional board. We all work on this with no pay. You guys who are coaches, you're working on it with no pay. And judges who are going to be judging online are going to be working without pay. But it's because we see the value in it. If you've heard before that you need a representative judge for your team, that's actually something different this year. You will not. We are going to be combing through all of the people who know Odyssey throughout the state and have done it in the past and can help us out. So our hope is we won't have to appeal to teams to provide a judge. So take that off your plate for this year. But do be kind to each other because we're all doing this out of the goodness of our heart. Who are your team members? Remember that teams have between 5 to 7 students. They work together from the fall all the way until the competition, which is in March. And their solution will be 8 minutes or less, and they must adhere to those structures put forth in the formal problem. And parents are either coaching or volunteering, hopefully in some way, even if they just go shopping for you or just follow through and have their kid create whatever they're going to create. Not helping them do it, but just reminding them, didn't you have homework for Odyssey this week? Didn't you say you were going to make a vehicle this week? Didn't you say you were going to do some research on marine animals this week? So just having them prod and be involved in the process in that way without giving extra assistance, but just reminding. That can be a big help too. The big difference between primary K-2 teams is that they are non-competitive. They're part of Division 1, and we do allow up to 8 team members for that. We can squeeze them in because it's not competitive like the others. There are different divisions. Division 1 is K-5, or K-5th grade. Primary is within Division 1, and that's only available for K-2nd grade students. K-2nd grade students can participate in the competitive problems as well, but typically I recommend that students who are kindergarten through 2nd start out in the non-competitive field because it's just a lot more fun not having to worry about the competitive aspects. Division 2 are your middle schoolers, Division 3 high school, and Division 4 college. What is Odyssey in the Mind? Well, we celebrated 40 years in 2019. It is an international competition, and it's the largest creative problem-solving competition in the world. It consists of a long-term problem that teams solve and also a spontaneous thinking that they do. And they compete in both those fields, unless they're a primary team, in which case they're only competing in the primary portion, the long-term portion. Like I said, it's elementary through college age, and usually it's an extracurricular activity. There are 5 different problems offered each year. Problem 1, mechanical or vehicle. 2 is technical. 3 is classics, so art or music or architecture, classic literature. Problem 4 is the balsa structure problem. So there's always building some kind of structure out of balsa wood and seeing how much weight it can hold. Problem 5, humor and performance. And of course, the primary problem, which is non-competitive. And the specifics change every year for the problems. Long terms have certain things in common. Every problem has like a price next to it. So it might be $135 or $125. That's not how much you pay. It's how much the kids can spend. They can spend up to that amount. Most teams go in way under it because we encourage our team members to use recyclables, create things on their own. We certainly don't want them running out and buying a bee costume because they want to be a bee. We want them to make a bee costume because that's what makes it Odyssey. They're creating it on their own. But they do have a tight budget. There's always designing a skit involved. They're making props. They're making costumes. And there's a time limit of 8 minutes. Big, huge rule for Odyssey of the Mind, no outside assistance. And when you meet with your parents of students on your team, be sure to hit that home because that's most important. There's also a long list of constraints. You'll go through the problem with a fine-tooth comb to pick those out. And usually it's good to just jot down the things you want to keep reminding your team about as they go through. Style. All problems have certain style elements they require, and then some that the kids will be working on in their own or choosing, because maybe some kid can play the clarinet and writes a clarinet song. That could be a style element. Or maybe they make a prop that's really well done and artistically beautiful, like this headdress of the chicken over here, or actually there was a really cool hat this group made. They made like a golden doll. Sometimes it's costuming. Sometimes it's an accent that one of the main characters use, but it really adds to their performance. And then there are spontaneous problems, which you are going to be working on hopefully most weeks. This year, our region is trying to support teams by having them do a spontaneous problem each week at your choice. You don't have to do it. Even if you're primary, this is open to you. So it's a good way to get the kids being creative about something once a week. It says you can spend 20 minutes on it. You don't need to spend that much, but it's a good way just to pose a problem and have them dig in and solve it. And then you can put their answers in the Google form, and that will come straight to us. And we'll put the most creative answers up on the website to encourage their creativity and show them what kids in our region are thinking. So Geneva's going to pop that one of them in your chat. So if you wouldn't mind just going in your chat and opening it up, then you can go ahead and try the problem. It's called night noise. Geneva, would you read the problem to us? Actually, I guess I can pull it up, right? The problem, night noise. Name a sound you wouldn't want to hear in the middle of the night and why. For instance, you might say, I wouldn't want to hear the fire alarm because my house might be burning down. So come up with a fun name so you can recognize your answer. So for your answers, you're going to make you'll have a team name. So it can be just like a silly name, like the Silly Snakes. Maybe your team wants to call themselves the Wriggly Worms, or whatever their team name. They can that can be one of the first things they work on together. And then you'll put their top 3 responses. We're just taking one today because we just wanted to kind of see what kind of thinking people were doing in today's session and give you an example of it. So did anybody? I think that might be the wrong one. Let me go to
That's the right one. We just don't have, we only have 2 people in the meeting. So
you didn't put answers in yet by any chance?
I'm working on it. Sorry.
Okay. And so this is a way the form will look somewhat to us each week, where we'll get the fun team name. We'll also be asking for your school name so that when we recognize you on the website, you'll be able to show what school you were from, and there'll be a special form we put it into so that we can show your answers on the website without calling out names of children, because security-wise or privacy-wise, we don't want to do that. So team name is John, and his response is Daddy, because I'm probably about to lose some bed real estate. So those are kind of creative answers. You always want to encourage them to, in spontaneous, to elaborate, to add some humor to it, to try to think of something that no one else thought of. Because obviously the fire alarm answer is a common answer, but you want to encourage them to be as creative as possible. A lion's roar, because it means there's a lion on the loose. So just thinking creatively, thinking out of the box, and then they can share their answers and choose which ones they want to submit to our website. Okay. Why do Odyssey the Mind? Well, it teaches divergent problem solving. So they're using their creativity to explore the many ways to solve a problem. Instead of coming down to one right answer, they're actually exploring so many different ones. And also it helps students see the value of teamwork. And I've found that it really is helpful in this area, because even in schools, there's, and certainly in the virtual world, there's just not as much chance for kids to work as a team, and to do something like this where they're actually creating something that's all their own. So it's definitely something you want them to get a chance to have access to. Now, how to do it is the big question. So we want to spend the rest of the time really talking about how to do it. And one of the ways to investigate how to do virtual Odyssey is by looking at videos of how other people have done it. I am not going to show the videos, but I do want you to know that on the Odyssey of the Mind website, if you look up how to perform virtually, you will find a few great examples of teams that have successfully done virtual performances. For instance, this one shows how they did it on Zoom. There are some in-person ones. As you can see, this group did it in a cul-de-sac, and they were socially distant, but that was the way they were able to film their performance. So just realize there are different ways that you'll be able to film at the end. The important thing to do right away is have them choose a problem and get started on their ideas for the solution. And then they can start putting their heads together for how they're going to make it work on Zoom or in person so that they can do it safely. We want to remember as coaches that you want to respect the diversity of your team members. Often there are quite an array of types of kids who gravitate toward this. Some are the natural leaders who just want to take it and run with it and have lots of ideas that they want to share. And sometimes there are a lot of those on the same team. So it's an issue of trying to make sure everybody gets an equal chance to share and that they see the value in each other's activities. Or ideas, I mean. So for instance, when they're doing spontaneous, it's a great time for you to list the answers, not put any names by them, but go back to the answers and have them look at them, maybe on a Google Doc or a shared document, so that the kids can see the different answers. And I would caution you not to have them call out and say, that was my answer, or I thought of that one. They can be very proud of their answer, but you want them to actually feel like a team. As a team, we thought of these great answers. So you've got your leaders, you've got your shy ones who have come to Odyssey and have great ideas, but aren't as willing to share. So let's give them other different ways to share their thinking. Maybe it's in the chat. Some of them will really gravitate toward being able to type in the chat, or being able to take a picture and put it in the chat, or being able to create something in front of the screen and share it. But trying to give everybody access and the chance to share their ideas. Remember that you will be having to access the long-term problems, and there's a synopsis. And this will be your first thing that you'll want. One of the first things you'll want to do with your team is make sure that they can see all of these different options. If you're primary, there's one thing they're doing. But if they're a competitive team, you want them to show them the 5 different options so that they can be thinking about which one to do. And remember that this is just a short snippet of what the real problem is about. If you click on the link to Odyssey of the Mind problems, you can see all of the different things on here. But there's also a PDF document, which is located on Nova East's website. So you'll be able to find it there, download it, and send it to your team members as well. Then from that synopsis comes a full-blown problem. And here's where I want to show you how to access the Odyssey of the Mind members area website. When you go to odysseyofthemind.com, you're going to be clicking at the top blue bar on Teams, going to the member area, putting in your membership number, which your coordinator knows, and the zip code usually it's the zip code of your school, and then go to long-term problems and forms. So let's go ahead and do that just so I can walk you through that process. It's a little different this year. Well, here's the teams. Here's members area. When you go to it, I always go to member login. You can change stuff and have a special username. I just do the member login. So just have your coordinator give you your membership number, and it is a 5-digit number. So you'll do the 5-digit number. You'll do the postal code for your school, and then you'll log in. And once you've done that, it asks you for an intention form. If you click OK, you're going to see that it pops up like this. you don't want to do that probably right now because you don't know necessarily which problem they're doing. Which problem you know the division, you know the type of team, but save that for later. So instead of putting that in right away, you're going to want to put that, you're going to wait on that. So you just press cancel for that and then go to long-term problems and forms. This is where you'll be able to find the program guide, which is essential. You want to make sure that you know what's in the program guide. And you're going to also find all of the long-term problems. So if you're doing the primary problem or superhero socks, you click on that and then you see all of the different things that are in there. It's going to have all the pieces of the problem for you to look at and read carefully. And typically I write down the main points. It's good for, especially third through up, give them all a copy of the problem. But for the primary problems, you're just probably going to want to put down the main things they need to know. All right. There's also a clarification section. So if you have questions about things, you can submit a clarification. There are already some virtual clarifications for this year. So notice that in long-term problems, there are also the long-term clarifications. That's where you send in a question and the bigwigs at the head office will answer that for you. Outside assistance. Remember that at the beginning I said, this is not your problem to solve. You will not be making costumes, building sets, thinking of ideas, telling them what to say or do. It's not that kind of coaching. So it's not like you're on the soccer team and you're going to say, okay, you're going to be going clicking, kicking here. You're going to be standing here. Your job is to have them decide that. And I know it can be frustrating. It can be really, really hard, but you're going to try to sit on your hands and do the best you can to get them to come up with it because it's their problem to solve. The role of the coach is really to keep your team organized and on track. You're going to help them read and understand the problems. You're going to take notes for them so they don't forget what they're doing. Brainstorm. Explain the scoring if it's a competitive team without interjecting. But if you know that certain elements are a 0 or a 5, you know that you want them to do it. But they don't need to go super overboard on do it. They just need to make sure it's there. Because if it's there, they get a 5. If it's not, they get a 0. There are some things, though, that are scaled of 1 to 10. Those are the ones that you're going to want to say, hey, if you want to get a 10 on this, what can you do to make that aspect really sing? And then submitting clarifications. If they have a question, you want to submit for a clarification instead of second guessing what it is. Now, before you do it, you do want to read the problem really carefully because chances are it's in there. But if it's something that you feel like is an interpretive thing, then go ahead and ask. Also, you want to remember to have that level of respect for all of the team members and try not to get negative or quash an idea right away because sometimes the craziest ideas end up panning out pretty well. And try to do team building activities to make it fun and to recognize every member of the team. You're like a teacher showing them basic skills. Like maybe one day you're showing them just kind of how to sew 2 pieces of fabric together or how to deliver a line to an audience so that it's straightforward so they can hear your voice. You could practice shouting so loud that everybody 12 feet away from you can hear you. So getting those skills out there without feeding them the line and delivering the exact line that they need to deliver. Obviously in primary, you're going to be filling out the forms for them, however they should be involved in it. And you can be a scribe in all Division I teams. Keep that sense of humor because it's crucial. And I have to tell you with virtual school these days, because I am a teacher, it's really important to get sleep the night before your meeting or take a nap, whatever you need, just to keep your sense of humor so that you can be the leader that you want to be in front of these kids. You're certainly a special person for volunteering to do this because the kids need you. This would not be happening without you. So you are crucial to them, and this will be one of the best things probably that they do during this entire year. Remember that the scoring elements in your problems, there's 200 up to 200 awarded for the long term. So the top team in that will get a full 200, and then it's kind of down from there. And The style elements, there's up to 50 points awarded in style, and spontaneous is worth 100. So don't discount the spontaneous unless you're in primary, but I still encourage you to practice on spontaneous because it's just a great way to get them building themselves up as a team. If you are in a competitive team this year doing spontaneous, please know that the competition, it will be verbal. So the majority of the ones we're putting out to you on a weekly basis are going to be verbal, but we'll do some verbal hands-on. And you can certainly do hands-on problem with your team online during your weekly. In fact, it'd be fun to like say, okay, for this week's meeting, everybody make sure you come to the screen with marshmallows and spaghetti. Box of spaghetti, marshmallows, have them in your front of your screen so we can be ready to go, or have them bring them to an outdoor venue so that they can be building or working together, because you're not going to really be able to share a whole lot of materials in this environment. Major information sources. So like I just showed you on Odyssey of the Mind website, that program guide, it's a large download. You don't necessarily have to download it, but you do need to read it. And all the way through at least once. It's kind of nice because the print's bigger than most things, and there are pictures and captions. So it's a pretty easy read. You know, read a chapter a night and it'll feel good once you're done. Remember to read clarifications, because other people will submit clarifications. And if you read them, you can find out which ones were public and what other people asks. And now everybody is a privy to know. You can actually submit private clarifications if it pertains specifically to the way your team solved the problem. It's not something in general. And then other sources, don't forget coaches, coordinators, problem captains, and regional directors like me. Remember, there are parts of the problem you need to focus on. The statement, there's a creative emphasis, and the spirit of the problem. The limitations, the site and setup, which although we don't have to deal with it, you will be, when you film it, you obviously want to be having it kind of within a certain area. And then scoring, penalties, style, and then what the team has to provide. And the glossary is incredibly important too, because a lot of times there are terms in there that go with your problem. And if you're not sure what the definition is, even though you think you might know, you might want to look at the Odyssey definition for it, just for the problem that you're working on. Remember, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to read to find out your answers. Follow our website, novaeastodysseyofthemind.wordpress.com. If you go all the way down on the right, not all the way down, but most of the way down to this little light blue box, you'll see where it says follow. You enter your email address and you will be alerted every time new things are added to the website. So I encourage you to do that. Please do that because in case your I always email the same things to the coordinators, but in case your coordinator doesn't forward quickly, then you'll know you're getting that information. Remember how to get to the members area. Those are the two places you really need to learn how to get to and get to swiftly. And then remember that while there are winners, this is really a process, and please emphasize the whole process thing a lot as opposed to the competition piece. Yes, it's a competition because we want them striving for their best at the end. However, the creative process is so important, and the ability for them to work as a team. So it's not as much about what place they come. It's more about what they learned along the way. So please play nicely, be a role model for those kids. There's a student contract, a parent contract, and even a sample letter up on the Odyssey of the Mind website in the members area. Keep an open line of communication with your parents. Maybe send a weekly email or every other week just so parents know what's going on. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just a quick like, today we worked on costumes and these kids are working on this at home this weekend. Or your kids did a great job this week. So-and-so said this. I mean, just anything you can do just to keep the good feelings going. And then even though they'll reach varied levels of polish, there's no wrong solution. And some will look back at with pride in their costumes, scenery, and props they've created. And others will just enjoy the process. They'll have fond memories of their friendships and fun and engaging in the creative process. In the end, you will be tired. It's a tiring task, but you will have allowed your kids on your team a chance to experience something that they will never forget. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions.
Thank you as always, Pam. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.